I'm kinda dissatisfied with how I reviewed this guy. I may not have pointed out some faults in the first review I ever did, and I may not have done very well with the stop motion. Thinking of actually re-reviewing this guy. Perhaps I should, refilm it, re-edit it, come out here where it's nice and good. Well, that takes care of that problem.
Sincerest apologies for the lack of activity. Blame it on the uni exams and getting sick. Well, actually, I'm still sick, but yeah, I wanted to put this review out, so whatever. Don't worry, I have tons of new toys and a 6-week holiday to review them all, so you'll be seeing them all soon. We good? Okay, good. Anyway, this review is going to be a tad difficult. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to hold the camera in one hand and demonstrate some things in the other because my god, this thing is huge. I'm using that silly YouTube stabilizer to fix it as much as I can, but if you get a headache, sorry. Anyway, if you told me a few years ago that my favourite Optimus Prime would not only be better than Revenge of the Fallen, not only be bigger than Leader Class, not only have a Movieverse body and a G1 alt mode, not only be compatible with an upscale trailer that was originally designed for the MP10, but also be a knockoff that's better than the original Voyager class figure, I'd probably have called the cops because some random person would have shown up at my house and told me he was a time traveller. Even if he was a Kabe, I'd have a hard time believing him. Yet here we are, with what might just be one of the greatest Movieverse Optimus Primes we've ever gotten, and it's a knockoff. We certainly live in a strange world. Starting off with the truck mode, the first thing you'll notice is that he's huge. Sorry if this sounds weird, but I think a size comparison is in order first. Next to this beast, the original Evasion Optimus just doesn't stand a chance. At all. Seriously. But in all honesty, Evasion Optimus was always tiny for a Voyager, so that's no fair comparison. Here's where things get a little weird though. You'd think that next to a Leader Class toy he'd be similar size. Well, nope. He's actually way bigger than the Leader Class, and considering the insane mass shifting this guy goes through, you'll be surprised at how big he turns out. Even Quake-Wave, who's pretty bulky, is smaller than him. Sure, Quake-Wave's longer, but Optimus Prime has more volume to him. Next thing you'll notice is the weight. I can't actually get across the screen because you can't feel weight on camera, but this thing is really heavy. Both the sides and the front part of the cab are fully die-cast, and coupled with the density of the parts inside this toy, you can tell this thing is not going to break easily, although I have heard stories of it doing so in robot mode. Now after these things become apparent, you can start to take in just how much detail this thing has. To truly appreciate it, I'm going to have to bring in the original Evasion Optimus as a comparison. The biggest difference on the upscale, in my opinion, would have to be the windows. Weijiang opted out of having Hasbro's clear windows and went with transparent black. This, while still preserving the fact that it's clearish, makes the Ghibli nature completely fixed. They also did some slight tweaking to make the windows line up better, and it looks amazing for it. Because of this, the side windows don't clash too much. On the Hasbro version, the reused silver severely clashed with the clear windows, but on the upscale KO, this is far less apparent. Also, just to make things simpler, I'm going to refer to this as KOE Prime. It's a pun based on knockoff evasion, and because it sounds like the Age of Extinction acronym. The back section is where most of these differences apply. For starters, the back of the cab has now been completely closed off to create a much cleaner looking alt mode. It's a subtle thing that they really didn't have to fix, but it sure as hell makes this mode look better. Here you'll also notice that the dinky old broken down single smokestack has also been replaced with two shiny chrome ones. This looks way better, and the chrome here is used incredibly tastefully, and it's applied well enough, so I honestly don't think it's going to be chipping off anytime soon. The chrome is also repeated on the tyres, which have been upgraded as well. They're now completely rubber, and considering how I don't really live in an area where rubber deterioration is that much of a problem, I really like this. From the side you can also see that the truck mode overall has been shortened to hide the legs better. This removes the visible leg syndrome of the original, but I'll get back to it when I'm discussing the cons because something does change. Finally, they also went ahead and filled in the back section. You may not have noticed it, but on the back of the original, it just stops and becomes crazy robo bits. Once again, they didn't have to do this, but the figure looks amazing for how they did it. Sadly, this figure is not without its flaws though, particularly in this mode. For starters, the front wheels are incredibly hard to peg in properly, due to the pieces having incredibly precise and tight connection slots. It's probably the most annoying thing about this mode. Well, not really. That distinction goes to the smokestacks. One's way loose and flops down, while the other's way too tight and almost impossible to transform. This is a problem with the chrome being applied so thick on that. The gas tanks on the side are also a bit of an eyesore. They look out of place, and the reason for this is, spoiler alert, that they are parts forming chunks that become the gun. I don't mind the idea, but they're way too big to look any good. The final problem, going back to what I said earlier, derives from the shortening of these proportions. Honestly, this thing kinda has a squashed feeling for me. By fixing the leg problem, they've made this thing look like a big dumb Tonka truck, and it just doesn't work for me. Thankfully, there is a way to fix it. When Weijiang made a knockoff of the MP10 mod, they added one tiny feature to this figure that honestly saves it from its squishiness. If you look at the back of the truck, there are two grooves on the feet. These allow the oversized trailer to fit into the place perfectly, and oh my god, this looks awesome. Yet again, it's a feature that was completely not needed, yet its implementation just works so well. Now, I don't actually own an original MP10, let alone a trailer for it. However, I can certainly say that by looking at the pictures, the trailer does have some differences when it comes to the paint. In short, they added a whole bunch of chrome everywhere, and once again, it's incredibly durable and superbly tasteful. It never feels tacky or toyish. This really does feel like a high-end third-party toy, only a bit better in some instances. I'll get into the other functions of the trailer later, but for now I'll explain the main con of this piece. Surprisingly, it's not to do with the fact that you have to purchase it separately. I think it's a good idea because not everyone will want to buy a trailer like this. No, the main problem is the symbol implementation. Unfortunately, due to the copyright, they can't actually give you the trailer symbols on the sides. Instead, you get these dumb blank ones with paint that easily scratches off. If you want the proper trailer symbols, you need to buy them. They're under $10, and most of the ones you'll find online are actually die-cast, but it still bothers me for some reason, I don't know why. I mean, they've already knocked off the whole figure. I'll show off a size comparison just for formality's sake, but I've already done so without the trailer, and let's face it, he's just too damn big to scale with anything. Well, except Human Alliance, but I don't really collect that. Transforming this guy is a goddamn event. Thankfully, it starts off easily enough with the trailer supports apparently coming out easier than the original, although I can't comment on that. What I can comment upon is the really important step with the feet that I need to explain to you, and what you need to keep in mind when transforming it.
Okay, quick talk here for a second. Now, you may have remembered on the original toy that the feet were difficult to get out, but, you know, they could be done. Like, if you were going to transform them, you'd have the feet ready to deploy. Now, I'll just give you an example here. Now, what you'd basically do is you yank it by here and peg it off, like so. And it would come out a lot easier. You know, you yank it by this back section here, and boom, comes right off. Now, I'm not going to fully transform this, but you will see a size comparison later. This guy's a little different. You don't actually pull here because that could damage the figure. What you actually need to do is take it, pull it to the side, and then rotate it down. So what you're doing is you're taking this foot and you're basically just rotating it to the side like that as you pull it out, because there's a catch mechanism. It's a bit more complicated in the short term, but in the long term, the longevity of the figure and the connections and everything work a lot better. It's just something you want to keep in mind when you're transforming this guy.
Now, this is still a knockoff, so the basic transformation scheme is the same. You're essentially turning a truck inside out and folding some fake windows around. However, this figure decided to take it a step further by adding extra steps to clean up the overall aesthetic of either mode. There are tiny little things that improve the figure's design, with just one exception that I'll discuss in the robot mode section. Honestly, this transformation's crazy complex, but not too difficult, except for one part. You see, the arms on this thing are impossibly tight. This causes posing and transforming to be incredibly difficult. That is, if you don't know what you're doing. The diecast can take it without any stress marks, but it's still an annoyance. Wait, how many times have I said incredible in this script? Ugh, what am I doing? This is why you don't write things when you're sick. Thankfully, the improvements make up for it. Some are minor, such as the flaps that would usually be under the hands tucking away, but some are more intense, such as the crazy wheel transformation that repositions his wheels to be completely movie accurate. And the best bit, none of it impedes articulation. Now, I want you to take a good long look at this robot mode. No, seriously, just look at it. Remember how I said this might just be one of the best Movieverse Optimus Primes we've ever gotten? Well, here's why. The Revenge of the Fallen Leader class was a fantastic toy, and I still miss him to this day. However, there's two problems with him. First are his proportions. He's way too wide towards the top, and although that's technically accurate to the movie, it doesn't translate very well into toy form. This toy nails the slender design that was hiding in that sad little Voyager that couldn't. It takes the potential and fully realizes it. The second reason is the size. Sure, he will never be in scale with anything, but that's not the point. If you were collecting as a kid, remember when you first got something like a Leader class or a Titan class of Optimus Prime? You probably thought he was big and the coolest thing ever. Well, sadly enough, that wasn't the case. You were just small, and as you grew, the toy shrunk. Leader class just doesn't pack the same punch anymore. This toy, however, brings me back to a time when I had an Optimus Prime that I thought was huge. I plan to pick up a replacement Optimus from Revenge of the Fallen one day, but I know he won't be as big as I remember. This, on the other hand, is true size and scale. I personally think this is the best representation of a Movieverse Prime, particularly in this mode, and I think you will too if you buy it. Sadly, I have to display him in truck mode though, as I need space on my shelf and I don't like putting the trailer away. Okay, enough rambling. Aside from the obvious size and weight, this guy has a lot going for him. For starters, the upgrades Black Apple has done has just made the figure look so much better. I mean, sure, yeah, now he has shoulder kibble, but honestly, it doesn't look too bad. The things like the updated wheels and the fixed ankle tilts and the paintwork just make this thing look utterly amazing. Oh good, I said amazing, not incredible. Yes! No, seriously, the paintwork is on point. The chrome is subdued here, but honestly it doesn't matter. The flames are amazing enough to carry this figure into the realm of awesomeness. I suppose I should do the accessories first, and oh god, he has a lot of them. For starters, his gas tanks combine into a gun, even revealing some flip-out surface detail. In all honesty, this just doesn't do it for me. It lacks the shaping from the movie counterpart, and because it's the gas tanks, it's just way too small. It's kind of like the hand-foot gun syndrome, where the hands were too big but the feet were too small, so they went halfway in between. In this case, the gun was too big and the tanks were too small. Thankfully, they store in the back in a similar fashion to Buster Prime, so you can completely forget about them. Although while we're here, can I just say that these added back flaps are really bad. They're painted fine, but they're so thin that I'm worried they're gonna break one day. Furthermore, they're in such a bad position that they're constantly banging up against moving parts mid-transformation, and as such, one of mine's comes slightly loose already. The other 4 weapons he comes with were nicked from some other third-party company. I think it was DX9 or Fans Wanted or something. And while it's kinda sad this figure mostly doesn't do anything original, they're still a nice addition. The weakest link of the 4 would have to be the axe, and that's not saying much considering how it's still quite amazing. It's perfectly sized, and the transparent plastic gets just the right balance between clear and sturdy. It doesn't look cloudy, but I don't feel like I'm gonna break it either. The only real things that bring it down are the lack of a dedicated tab for the palm slot, although some might actually consider that a pro, and the messy application of the paint surrounding the midsection. Mine's not too bad, but don't expect the rectangles to be painted off too cleanly. The paint's no issue in terms of quality, by the way, as it looks fine and doesn't chip off. 2 out of the other 3 weapons are what you have to include on pretty much every Movieverse Optimus Prime at this point, unless you're the Knight version onwards. Yes, these are the swords we've all come to know and love, and thank God they're here, because they are mandatory. For Optimus Primes in general, I mean, not for this toy. Thankfully, the paint is applied much better here, and they tab in quite well. You can either give him 1 or 2, and I like to do the former so I can give him his final weapon, the shield. This part would have to be my fave, with all the Cybertronian lettering and transparent orange bleeding through the deep, rich gunmetal. Although it doesn't peg in as well as the swords, it still looks cool enough to give it a pass. If none of these weapons tickle your fancy, the trailer has actually been retooled to allow you to store each of them, except for the gas tanks. Ben's Collectibles didn't quite figure it out, so here's an instructional segment.
Okay, quite simply, what you need to do is to take the axe. You basically you'll notice that there's certain molding over around this section, and pegs here. And it pegs in between the bottom translucent parts, and well, the bottom transparent parts and the top transparent parts. Next thing you want to do is, you see here, you need to make sure that the handle is facing the left side of the back, which is the right side of the front. You'll notice there's a little slot here, and there is a peg here. What you basically want to do is, you take it, and this one's a bit difficult, it's the same with the hand issue, where it is the hardest to peg in. You basically just peg it in, and it's a bit wobbly, but it mostly works. Finally, this side is for the swords. You'll notice right here that there are these triangle sections. That is where you are going to slot in... which side is it? Yeah, there you go. You're going to slot in the swords into the triangle sections, and the handles will face outwards. So, there you go. And then it closes up as normal. There is, of course, one small downside. Roller no longer fits snugly into the thing. His feet no longer touch the ground, which is a bit unfortunate. I've been debating whether to make a Shapeways ramp that actually fits over the top here. I'm thinking maybe I could connect it to here and you could just put it on top of it. However, I'm not exactly sure how big I could make it, especially with the weapons on each side. And besides, this is a G1 styled roller. Like, this kind of stuff, yeah, they can sort of fit with Optimus in terms of the aesthetics, alongside the, in a sort of Cyberverse way, because, the Cyberverse things were kind of blocky, but they also sort of fit into this. And, with the weapons stored here, it all works, and I suppose maybe Roller doesn't fit so well. Also, I would have liked him to be blue, but, well, it's just a personal preference.
Also, while I'm here, I better show you off what the trailer can do, in case you haven't seen the MP10 before. Of course the trailer opens up, but it can also stand up and become a repair bay if you want. There's a weird cockpit thing that extends, and when the trailer's closed, it can peek up the top. There's a ramp that folds down, and in the trailer's closed configuration, the doors can open to help Roller, or any Deluxe/Voyager now with the increased size, drive in. As said earlier though, Roller can no longer fit.
Well, scratch that. No Shapeways ramp. He doesn't even fit in with anything there. Well, that's a shame. Oh well. I Guess I have a spare roller now to do what I want with him. Yay!
By the way, if you happen to own the Sword of Judgment keychain, which I picked up from TF Source, you can pull off the chain segment and let Optimus hold it. His hand grips it okay, but don't try to have him hold it sideways, as the hands can't hold the weight of the metal as well as the shoulders and elbows can. I would have liked to have the swords be bigger, however these items are entirely unrelated as the sword wasn't designed for the M01 anyway. Oh, and as a final option, you can also swap out the face for a mouthed one. Honestly, since my regular version already has a mouth, I see no need for this. But I can't really show you it anyway because I lost the mouthed face, so here's a skull spider instead, with only 3 legs. Deal with it.
I can feel the power!
Anyway, onto the few cons this mode has, including the matrix cavity. While this does look cool, I'm never gonna do this again after I finish filming. The chrome plastic flap at the front seems way too flimsy, particularly at the joints. Also, the chrome seems kind of flaky towards the joint as well. And although the idea is nice, the execution is just not good enough. And continuing with the cons, these hands are pretty bad too. The fingers are way too long and the articulation is severely lax. The wrists don't do much either. With a swivel and a useless outward motion, I get that the hands have to be long and thin to fit in the cab, but really, they should have been better in some way. Gee, almost at 3,000 words and I haven't even touched on the articulation or the size comparison. It really speaks of the versatility of this mold. To finish off, here's a picture from TFW. Sadly, I forgot who to do this, but hey, I think you can do this, but I haven't figured it out yet. Just wanted to show you in case you do. For articulation, this guy's packed with it. That is on both a ball joint and a hinge, the shoulders ratchet out, and through the aforementioned almost impossibly tight joints that can rotate 360 degrees. He has a bicep swivel and a really good elbow bend, but sadly it has the issue of the original with him not being able to be fully straight. It doesn't look as bad here though, with the added paint details hiding it quite well. It still looks kinda dumb though. The hands have wrist swivels, ball jointed universal thumbs, and fingers that move on 2 hinges. Yeah, all of them move at once, unfortunately. That's the problem. He has a waist swivel, universal hips with forward ratchets, a thigh swivel, and a ratcheted knee. It's really cool how they added extra ratchets where they weren't originally to compensate for the added weight of the die cast. Finally, the feet have the same swiveling motion, however his ankle tilts have been given a slight bit of extra room. He also has a ball jointed toe section at the front, which doesn't help with posing, but allows you to cheat if you can get the weight just right. A lot of these joints are really tight, but if you can get them working, he can pose like a champ. Now, one of the biggest turn-offs with this figure comes with the size comparison. I know I briefly touched upon this at the beginning with the robot mode, but he will never scale well with anyone. Well, except for MPP-10, who's also been released, and possibly a Dark of the Moon Megatron that Black Apple is also producing. I tried contacting Weijiang about this, and they said they weren't making it, whereas the producer, Black Apple, has said yes, so, I know what's going on. The question is not for the score of this figure. He's easily a 5-star figure, and although he's not perfect, no toy ever is. No, the main question is not this. It's should you buy this? Well, you have to get over some of the flaws he has. I mean, even a 5-star figure has some flaws. Personally, I think it's fine, but there's a number of things to consider. Firstly, he's expensive. You'll be lucky getting one for $100 nowadays, and the trailer is also another $100, not to mention $10 for the trailer logos, and that's in US by the way. I ended up paying far more in Australian, despite being lucky enough to secure a 10% eBay discount. That brings me to the second problem. eBay. There have been some major issues with fraudulent sellers online, particularly with this mother who thought it would be so funny to send Monster Hunter pens and bead bracelets. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name because this is a huge issue at the moment and the whole knockoff thread on TFW is going on about it. But because this guy is in such huge demand, I highly doubt waiting it out is a good idea. So I recommend going with one of these sellers. I've personally bought from Baba Bobo, and to Kui Kui I got the trailer symbols from. Kingslayer is also apparently good, but I'm only going by board recommendations. Also, this guy is also apparently good, and that's about it really. I don't really know about other eBay sellers. Some of these aren't my opinions, so take them with a grain of salt. However, Baba Bobo specifically is a really good seller, and I think he has some at the time of making this review. More importantly to consider are the other faults with the figure itself. Those things aren't really flaws, but just things to think about. The real issues are the bad matrix cavity, the impossibly tight shoulders, and the dumb hands. Other than that, he's a stellar figure, so it's more a question of if you like the movie aesthetic, and whether you want to get a toy that's out of scale with everything else. Also, are you okay with getting a knockoff? If you're fine with that, then go ahead. He's great. He's the best thing to happen to the Bayformers franchise since they killed off Wheelie. Yeah, I don't actually mind it that much. I don't think Wheelie's that bad. It was just a comedy sketch. Anyway, next time, yes, we're actually going to Quake Wave. I think it's time we finally got that out of the way before I get on with my TF source order. Got a lot of toys to get through, so let's get going.
Get out.